So I hadn't seen this since it came out in the theaters, and I remember I went opening weekend at the big theater in Santa Rosa, the Roxy, when that was the new theater in Sonoma County, and I remember being lured there by the cast, which is still kind of bonkers when you
Yeah,
look at it.
Yeah, it's
really
great.
good.
I mean, I remember seeing In the Company of Men and remembering that it made my skin crawl, but I'm like, well, maybe this will be good. And I haven't seen it since. And I had the exact same reaction watching it this time that I did 24 years ago, which is I see what you're trying to do here. And in almost any other situation, I would be right there with you because this is kind of my level of sarcastic, mean humor. But the whole fucking film kind of makes my skin crawl. I mean, it's kind of got an idiot plot. Like it's an idiot. Let's face it, it's kind of an idiot plot, right? The
Actually,
actors do a pretty
I think the plot is the best, one of the best things
well.
about
Actually,
I
yeah,
mean,
this
you got to
weirdly
be
movie.
enough,
able to
It
buy
just
the idea that
doesn't.
she's going to go into this sort of weird, catatonic, standing, coherent fugue thing because she's trying to forget the killing of her husband, who's great, by the way. But there's
Yeah.
just something about the tone that
Mhm.
swings
Mhm.
really wide from
Oh
scene
yeah.
to scene,
Yep.
and I mean, I don't know, like I can't put my finger like just like this whole thing's just really unpleasant, and I
I
can't
wouldn't.
get.
Maybe it hasn't aged well.
I wouldn't call it unpleasant for me, but I want to echo what Chris is saying because I too went and saw it in the theater. I was a big Neil LaBute fan based on this is before I did theater. Obviously, he's sort of a I wouldn't say a god in the theater, but he's definitely very popular. But I loved In the Company of Men and I loved Your Friends and Neighbors. And then this, I walked out of the theater with a similar experience to Chris, where I was like, what the fuck was that? And and again, I think that the plot is excellent. I don't know why the execution didn't work here. I
Well,
just feel like it doesn't work. I don't know if it's the writing, the direction, both. I think this cast is very strong. I
Yes,
love this idea. I love this idea
I
of this
swear this
woman who,
this
Morgan Freeman has never been more weirdly sympathetic.
yeah.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
a lot of these guys at the top of their form, Freeman and Zellweger was
I
getting a
even think
huge
Chris
ramp
Rock
up.
is
And
good in this,
Chris
and I
Rock,
kind of hate him in everything.
I know he was great,
yeah.
but
He's more, and Greg Kinnear is great here.
I
Really
know
good.
Greg Kinnear was on definitely top of his form back then. He's in tons
And
of stuff.
Like, but it
what's his
just
name?
is.
Eckhart with the
Eckhart
mullet.
is so good. In fact, I was like, don't kill him off. I love this
And
guy,
he's exactly what they
but
did. And
it's
gruesomely,
clunky.
might I add.
I just feel like it's clunky.
But it feels like the script is written in 10-minute 10-page chunks. Like this first thing, 10 minutes happens, the next thing, 10 minutes happens. It's because it's very episodic. Here you start off, you meet Betty, then this thing happens in the car dealership. Then these guys come over to the house, and then he gets killed, and then this happens, and then this happens, and the whole film is broken
But
down in these little
wait a minute,
sections.
isn't that every movie? Is this
Not
just a
really.
series of
This doesn't have,
sequences?
but this doesn't
Every
have
movie where they
the
went to
sequences
writers'
feel
camp,
very sequency.
John.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like
Well,
it kind of it feels staccato because it keeps stopping and starting.
well,
And stopping and starting.
there's also like a low rent Coen Brothers feel to this movie that doesn't
I was
gel.
thinking of Fargo.
Yeah, yeah, it's
At the
definitely
very
very
beginning,
Yeah,
it's
Fargo.
kind of like Fargo with
Fargo
black
is
people.
this movie done really well.
Mm.
Fargo is this done really well, but again, the
Yeah, because
core
they
of
were
the
at the top
movie
of their
is,
form.
and
This
this is
guy
the thing I
doesn't
guess I
seem
just
to
could never
be
get.
able to
But you
direct.
got to accept that she's going to go off on the. Well, you got to like, okay, I have to buy that the primary premise is she is going to go into this imaginary place where
Mhm.
she is in the TV show. Like I just couldn't swallow it because everything around her is playing it totally straight.
See, I did swallow that, and I think that's what's great about it. I just didn't think it worked after that.
Oh,
Mm.
Although it seemingly does, like on the surface, it kind of does. I don't know how to describe why I didn't enjoy it that much because
Well,
everybody is
I
sort of
can't
reacting
either.
the way they would react.
yeah. Once she loads herself into the car, which of course is a MacGuffin because it's got the dope in the trunk, right?
Yeah.
Once she starts doing her thing to go meet her soap opera star lover, we all know that's the collision course of this film. We're waiting for her to
Right.
hit reality, and it just gets closer and closer, and everyone's playing along with it.
Happens
everyone's
on
playing along with
set.
And it happens on set.
In fact, it happens way past I thought what would actually happen.
Yeah.
So
And
Yeah,
because
it's sort
everyone
of
kept buying into it. You know what I mean? And so
at
that
the
was
end of the movie.
almost ended the film exactly. So that was kind of interesting. All these collisions kept waiting to happen and didn't happen until the
Yeah. And
very
then,
very end.
well,
Mhm.
and then spoiler alert, and then she becomes actually a cast member on the
They're all
show,
dead.
Well,
which is, I don't know. I think there's a better movie here
Yeah,
with a
that
better
was the
ending.
big one to swallow too.
yeah, it was
Yeah, like there's a better movie. There's a much better movie here, but there's definitely a better ending where it ends earlier and it's kind of fucked up. I don't know,
Mhm. There's
but I
also the
really
thing
love
where
this premise.
one of
Like
the things,
what?
I don't know if this is a symptom of
Shot?
the time or not, but there's this thing about where really good-looking, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls get away with everything they want to because they're beautiful and blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Everyone falls in love with Betty. The entire movie. Morgan Freeman, Greg Kinnear's character,
Except for
everybody,
Chris Rock.
except for Chris Rock. But you find the nice thing is, but later on you find out
Except at
Chris
the
Rock.
end, did you believe that he really was a fan of the
Yes,
soap
I
opera?
did, 100%.
Oh, but I know that was totally thrown at the end,
It
though. Don't you
seemed
think?
totally against character, but maybe it was.
That was
Well,
a late
I think because they didn't build it up soon enough. They didn't.
Yeah.
They sort of
They
sprung
didn't
it
set it
on
up.
you.
There's no setup for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you find out, I mean, it actually is kind of funny that the more heartless guy or the crazy guy is actually a real fan of the show.
Mhm.
Right.
They could have dropped those hints earlier. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, it's going to set up that arc.
This is Zellweger
So
on the way up.
I hadn't seen it before,
Oh.
either of these
Him,
movies.
yes.
And I found it pleasant, but yeah, I found it kind of clunky in its execution. And I'm not quite sure if it was the director or the editing of just how it was put together, because the acting all seemed quite good.
Mhm.
Uh,
The acting is good, and
It's
this
so
is
weird to me that we've got 5 of the most opinionated motherfuckers in the universe about movies, and none of us can really articulate what our problem is with
what
this
the
movie.
problem is.
Well,
yeah.
and it's
To
worth
me-
noting that LaBute did not write this one.
Mhm.
2 other people wrote it for
Oh,
it. I
okay.
just because he
It's a-
typically does write his own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's a playwright, and so all his past things were things he wrote and then directed, for film. And to me, this one probably feels like sort of maybe a career move. It was like, well, the Coen brothers and Tarantino and stuff, that's really popular, that kind of tone of irreverent, mixing comedy with violence.
Mhm.
And so I get the feeling that it's like, okay, what if we did like a really rom-com soap opera plot, but then had a guy get scalped and shot in cold blood and all these other nasty things happen. And
It's the same year as Go. It's the same year as Oh Brother Where Art Thou. There's like that's
Yeah,
what's going on
The year
around this
after Very Bad Things, which
Yeah.
I would also had a really hard time with for the same reason, which is
Mhm.
wild pendulum swing between. I'm supposed to be laughing.
Right.
Wow, that's kind of mean and cruel and gross.
It is, yeah. That's a good comparison because I think that film is better just because I think it knows more of what it is than this movie, but it is similar in the fact that it doesn't quite work.
It might be that
Yeah.
because the other movie is really aware
I
of
like
itself.
Oh my
as
God.
both a movie and a
Well,
story.
sure.
Well, we'll get to that in a sec.
A meta commentary.
Do you
And
think
this one
this is-
seems oblivious to its own storyline.
Interesting?
That's a really. I got to think about that.
Yeah,
Actually,
me too. That's actually
Yeah.
I think you just nailed it.
I think you did.
Mhm.
Oblivious to its own storyline. That's in terms of how the acting arcs work in this thing and how people are interacting with each other. It is. It's like
Well, also, if this movie wants to sort of also at least scratch that romantic comedy itch a tiny bit, like get in on that genre, like touch on it,
yeah.
I think maybe that's the mistake. Meaning, what the scenes with Renee and Greg are really
They have
great.
chemistry.
I mean, they have
Really,
it's
really good.
really beautiful.
uh-huh.
I don't know if maybe surrounding that with a little more dark, serious tone throughout the rest of the picture, but still having, I don't know if that would have worked better. I feel like you could have done this movie darker, colder, and it would have worked better.
Well, it's
But
thought
still
it
had
was
that
actually-
chemistry.
Maybe lighter, Jared.
Or maybe
it's-
go all the
maybe-
way light.
well,
Yeah.
that's the
Maybe
thing,
it's an
but
unhappy medium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is it. It's like it's trying to do all these things kind of equally, and it probably needed to pick a lane.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
know
you could
it-
have. Well, you could have maybe get shortied it and made the violence a little more comical or something. Like made it like.
Also,
like,
for one thing,
I
in
think of
most-
Get Shorty as a violence, but super funny movie.
I mean,
Yeah, it
the
is.
lead off with the scalping and then the murder, it's like, fuck, man, like that, like it's kind of like um, the one we saw with Bill Paxton, where
One
it's like
false move.
one false move, like
Yeah.
out of nowhere, like, whoa, this just got dark.
Yeah, exactly.
I
But
was
then-
not
when he
prepared for how
shoots
dark
him
this
there.
was going
Well,
to get.
I think part of the tone of it is that the problem I'm having with the tone of the thing and trying to figure out where our sympathies lie is that, again, I mentioned this earlier, the main character is mentally ill. Main character is delusional.
Mhm.
What do we do with that? Because we know from this
Well,
point
because
on,
you
he
need-
is not in reality, and she's moving on
Well,
her
yeah,
goal.
And then we
Yeah,
also see
Right. So it's not a
Both of
standard
them.
narrative. You're right, Scott.
But
It's
it
not a
comes
standard
as a
narrative where we
surprise.
want her to accomplish her goal because she's the main
we're
character.
worried about her
Right.
because she's
No,
nuts.
I
we're
was
more interested
really
in
worried
seeing-
about her.
But
you're worried about it. You're interested in seeing what happens. What
hold on,
that
though.
you are
And-
interested
and-
though is like,
and
how is this
never-
gonna?
And never more so than in the scene where she finally sort of has that psychic break where she's standing on the set and she looks up at the lights.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, there's that great.
By the
Yeah,
way,
but
the
until
performance,
then,
that's
the
what
John, she's
payoff.
Chauncey Gardner.
There
Her
are
also
performance
think that
there
the
is just
producer is the,
incredible, and I
best
was
realized character.
Yeah, that's really good. But up until
I was
that,
afraid for her. I was like really afraid for her in that scene.
Mhm.
yeah, but up until that moment, she's literally Chauncey fucking Gardner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Like,
humoring
she-
her.
she
Everyone's
just
getting
feel
her
like
pushing
for
her.
Well,
an
she is.
hour where
She is in
people
this
are
sense where.
assigning motive or rationale to her behavior that we all know doesn't really
Well,
exist.
Yes.
One of the best comedic moments.
And I
is-
love that, Chris. I actually love that. That it takes this stupid sitcom. You know, there's that thing in sitcoms where it's like one conversation could fix everything that's going to be this whole half-hour episode,
Idiot
and it
plot.
never. That
But no,
conversation
but
never
this is-
happens.
But actually, this is worse now because
Well,
as a sitcom
they-
complication,
but they-
it's like where the people like in a rom-com, they're like, if you just simply explain for 30 seconds what's going on, everything's gonna be
It would be
figured out.
gone.
But
Yeah,
there
that's-
are
this-
moments
this
where
is-
her
this is hard,
roommate
much harder
does
because
try to tell her that.
Yeah, but she's
Just trying to say
mentally ill. We don't
you're
know
mentally ill,
what's
right.
gonna bring her back in again. So that's a
Yeah.
mystery to us. It's
But
like
there's that
30 seconds
scene
of straight
where
conversation, she's just gonna ignore it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
there's
Why do
that
they keep
moment.
calling you George?
Yeah.
Well, 'cause
Yeah,
she's
it's
living
that.
in a
You know that
parallel
party they
universe.
get into
Uh-huh.
with Greg and the
Oh
sitcom
my
or the soap
God.
opera cast.
That's a lovely scene.
But there's that moment
scene
where it's so
is
good
so
and the
good.
funniest punchline and that's when that hit I said maybe the whole movie should be like this is when her roommate and friend and Rosa is like go over and talk to him. So then we have
Yes.
this beautiful scene and he actually says, "Will you come with us?"
Yeah.
And then there's a shot where she looks over at Rosa and Rosa's like, "What the fuck?" Like it's working, you know. She doesn't say anything, but it's that look on her face. And Renee just like waves at her like, "I'm in. I'm in.
Jared-
We're
Jared-
going."
I'm out for a night
That
to town.
scene is astounding.
No, you know what-
She
you know
is
what
so
saved-
great in it. Craig
know what-
Kinnear is
not-
so
not
great
that-
doing this thing where it's like he's a good actor and he's improving, but he's not as good as her. And you can
Mhm.
see that performance where he's like tuning it just to be not quite as good as her.
I'm
And
gonna
then he
argue
keeps
it's-
he
it's-
keeps
it's
breaking
not
too.
Kinnear and it's
Yes,
not
I
Zellweger.
love it.
It's Allison Janney. She owns that scene.
Yeah,
She's very
Allison
good.
Janney
We haven't
is
talked
the
about how
person
good she
steers
is.
everything
she's
the way
great.
it's supposed to go, and
Yeah.
This cast
watching
is
her work was
stacked.
just marvelous.
To me, that scene is the best scene in the movie, and probably like the thing that makes me more than anything else in the movie think this is a good movie.
Well,
And I do
so-
think it's a good movie. I think I like it more than any of you.
I think it's a very interesting misfire.
I would agree with Chris, and I think that, like we said earlier, John.
I think it's a
I don't think it's a
flawed
bad
gem.
movie.
Well, if the whole movie would have been like that scene somehow, or that joke where she looks back at Rosa like she got in with the guy and she's a crazy person, like
Yes.
how the hell did that happen? If they could somehow have tonally matched that throughout the picture, with its different various ups and downs, but within that range,
Mhm.
it probably would have been more of a success. Or you
It
go
could have been
darker
her
with it.
adventures with the soap opera crew, the soap opera cast and crew, and less about the crime storyline.
But you
or
still have that wonderful setup, right? I mean, but yeah, you could have had
you have to have it.
you have to have it, and you could have the murder of Dell a lot more comical or off camera or whatever.
Well, yeah,
Right.
we don't.
We haven't even talked about the weirdly strange obsession that Morgan Freeman has with her, and
Well,
that's just it.
I mentioned that about
Well,
the
he's
blonde hair,
mentally
blue eye
ill,
falling in
too.
love.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Jim
Sure.
just nailed it. They
Yeah.
try to paint the picture that he's actually also mentally ill,
That's right.
or at least is turning mentally ill.
Yeah.
And that is really interesting, but they don't go far enough with it.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not, because he gets one weird like hallucination by the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
He thinks he's dancing with her.
And I'm watching
Kissing
that
her.
going, what is everyone in this film going to go nuts?
And he and
Well,
the
he's
person
fallen-
that
he's
turns
fallen
out
in
to
love
be
with
his
her. He's
son
fallen in love with
figures
her.
it out
Uh-huh.
immediately.
This movie's
It's
crazy.
like, what are you doing over there?
And you
Right.
also don't know that
Right.
they're father and son until the very end.
Which I
Right.
love. He says
that-
daddy,
yeah.
and that's the first time you
And
find
I
out
guess-
as he's
I think-
dying.
I don't remember if that was a surprise to me the first time, but obviously I'm watching it this time going, oh, this is father and son, so their relationship makes a lot more sense to me, the way they talk to each other.
Right.
But if I hadn't seen it, I mean, I'm trying to remember, it's been 25 years.
I knew it or
that-
forgot it. It was.
Yeah, no, I remember.
I had forgotten that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but also
There's
that.
like-
Chris Rock is good in this, in that you hate him. He is such a bad-tempered little fucker.
Yes, and I.
Well,
Well, I would say he's weirdly better in this
I
than
like
most
it.
acting jobs he does.
Yeah. Also, going to
I
the
mean, I
Grand
think he's
Canyon at night
shits
must
the
look
bed a lot,
fantastic
but
on the
this is-
script page. It's like, because he went to Grand Canyon at night. He's like, this is beautiful. It's like completely pitch black, right?
Couldn't see.
I know, it's like, that must have looked great on the page. You know?
Sheila points out that it's closed and you cannot get to the Grand Canyon. Right?
yeah,
But okay.
Yeah, if you're making a movie, you can get there.
Well, if you're a criminal, maybe you don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
and you
yeah,
somehow-
sure.
You go around the roadblock and you drive up the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I was when John Pick's like, oh yeah, I'll watch that again. It's been a while. I mean, maybe my reaction will be different. And no,
I felt the same.
I love it.
I think Chris and I are simpatico on this whole.
I think Renee
experience.
Zellweger is so goddamn good in this. Just top
she's
level.
not the problem. That's
She's
No,
not the problem.
and
Morgan
we're gonna
Freeman's
get to
great in
the.
it.
It's a crazy yarn. It doesn't you know, you just to think about it too long, it doesn't make any sense. But you know, again, it's that preposterous thing where it's like could never happen because nobody would let her get as far as she gets to be
But
on the set.
remember,
No,
like,
but she
'cause I
is
looked.
great, and
I
I think
looked,
this is
like,
such
I
a
know,
great
Hollywood's a
pairing.
strange place, man. It doesn't seem too out.
I looked at the filmography, like, so she basically burst the door, bust the door down with Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
This is a couple of years later. She's still on her way up with this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Bridget
yeah.
Jones' Diaries coming up.
Bridget Jones'
Right.
Diary and Cold Mountain are a few years from
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Right.
Like, and you're just like, the camera loves her. She's got charisma of the, like, forget about it, right? Like, she's a flippin'
But that's
star.
and we're
Yeah.
going to get to the next one, but I think this is an interesting pair because I think she's a very talented person, and I think these are two just overall misfires. We'll get to the other one, but it's just an interesting. Yeah, I don't know because she had some hits, right? She had some big,
Big hit.
and I think these weren't failures. I don't know how they did at the box office, but anyway.
Both of these,
Unfortunately, the only thing I've seen recently that she's in is the Bridget Jones trilogy. So
Yeah.
right.
Right.
it was all colored.
I
by
wonder why
that.
she stopped acting.
I'm
I
sure.
don't know anything about her.
She looks a
but-
lot
Did
different.
she go into
Yeah,
production
she looks a lot
or
different.
did she
But,
just retire?
Yeah, I don't know, but the one thing about this, I think this is just part of its time. Like you think about, like
She
again,
got some face work done.
going back to Go and like that way that film was blended violence and like wackiness together and all
Yeah.
over the place. This kind of does the same thing, except tonally, this is actually takes much bigger strides.
Less wacky.
Yeah, it's less
Yeah.
wacky. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
like,
and Go has a frenetic quality to
Yeah,
it. on
well,
but it's also
purpose.
very emotional.
Also, Scott, Neil LaBute's mean.
He
He's
is.
mean.
He is fucking mean.
He's kind of a
He's
cold-hearted
fucking
director.
mean.
Yeah.
He's interested in
Not talking about him as a person, although who knows. But I mean, just saying
No,
his
but
material.
The movies that he made leading up to this are both, I find, nigh unwatchable. They're so-
Unbelievably
Yeah,
cruel.
They're cruel,
Unbelievably
independent
cool.
films, man.
but they're
I couldn't imagine
hilarious.
watching them again.
They're if
Oh,
you
they're,
can
they're really well written.
But this is you.
they're really well written.
Pratfalls again.
and they're super funny if you can find humor in the dark parts of the human psyche, which I
I
think he's
usually can't. You're
interested.
too dark even for me, man.
This is more of like a nod towards the mainstream. I think. Like I said, I think it's
Yeah.
kind of a career move. It's like, I should do this now.
I agree with you, John. I think he
not
probably
to even cast aspersions because it's like it seems like a really good idea. And again, I like this movie, and I think it's a successful film.
He also did. I think you're absolutely right. I bet they came to him and they were like, "You're on the cusp, like you're on the verge. You need
Yeah, you're the
something."
next Tarantino.
Yeah, you need something.
a bunch
and-
of money.
But then he And
Crispin.
funnily enough, he did that Wicker Man remake, which I never saw, but is universally panned from critics and
pretty
audiences
bad.
alike.
Yeah.
Which is just
I
really
have
funny
seen it.
because why do that? Oh, you have
I
seen
know,
it?
I
but
like doing it. You know,
at that point, like
That
is
seems like a
is
hot
that
for
literally
hire
the job you
gig.
can
but
get?
there was, you know, these
Oof,
guys,
yeah.
some of these independent filmmakers are really stretching out. Remember Gus Van Sant did the shot for shot remake of Psycho? Right?
Psycho.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse than Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so.
Well, that's
Also,
just like pointless.
my man Crispin, come on. Never
Yeah.
seen
Love
Yeah.
Crispin.
I
It was
love
nice
it. He
to
did
see
a good level
Crispin
on this.
again.
And what's the other guy's name? Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Taylor Vince.
Yeah.
Wasn't he that nutty guy from that movie about everyone like being in a hotel and dying on one by one?
Well, he was also in Jacob's Ladder. He's in a lot of things.
He's in a lot of things.
That was John Hawks. That's Vacancy. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
No, not Vacancy.
He also starred in a good little movie called Heavy that James Mangold
Yes.
wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah. With what's her name?
Liv Ullmann. No, Liv.
I love that. Anyway,
Liv Tyler.
Not Liv
those guys
Phoebe
both
Waller-Bridge.
brought it.
Very
Different
different.
age difference there. No.
I would
And
like
this
to
is
have
a
seen
tough
this
one.
movie if it was directed by Ingmar Bergman
Oh,
or Jean-Luc Godard.
maybe-
I
Yeah,
don't even know where my
yeah.
Actually,
thoughts are.
Godard could probably do this
I
material.
think I kind of see this Godard thing working.
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
Are you saying you're drawing a line between this and Persona? Because
No.
there is.
Persona and 2 or 3 things
There
I
is.
know about her.
All right, I think we.
I don't. I mean,
it's time.
Oh, where to put the thumb?
It's
Oh,
like
come on.
it's like
Oh, yeah,
it's
I'll
not
just-
totally
I laughed
done.
and
I'll
laughed
just-
and laughed. I
Just tip it ever so slightly. But
Uh,
I really like
It's
this.
I'm in
almost
love
like
with-
halfway.
I did
For the
think I
acting.
think it's very interesting. Not boring. I think it's an interesting, weird misfire.
Glad I
made me
saw
laugh.
that.
Yeah,
That's all I want
Chris
from
and
a
I
Okay,
are on the
then.
same page with this picture.